Today we're going to be discussing Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the 1978 novel by Alan Dean Foster, published just shy of a year after the release of the original Star Wars in March of 1978. It was actually written during the production of the original Star Wars. It's the first novel in what came to be called the Expanded Universe and is technically the first official sequel to Star Wars and the first story to be retconned. According to Wikipedia, the little blurb is the story focuses on Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, who are marooned together on the world of Mimban, where they encounter the locals and struggle against the forces of the evil Galactic Empire, including Darth Vader, while seeking out the powerful Kyber crystal. So, we've all reread this recently, correct?
Actually, it's for the first time. I never read it before.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
So Michael, you had read it before, yes?
Yes, I did my second read. I actually read it in the 2 days leading up to recording this for the folks at
And
home,
we
which
thank
was
you. We thank you very much for spending your weekend reading Splinter of the Mind's Eye. It's a great and noble sacrifice, and I'm sure our listeners appreciate it very, very much. So, what do we think? Overall thoughts on Splinter of the Mind's Eye? Now that it's fresh of our mind, I hadn't read it since I was in fifth grade.
Yeah, I've
uh,
always been aware of it, and I remember seeing the comic book art for it at comic stores, and it was just always like in the atmosphere, but I just never sought it out for some strange reason. I don't know why.
well, it is kind of an interesting anomaly in Star Wars because it's the first piece of of quote unquote expanded universe material, before that was even a term, that was retcon basically almost immediately. Like as soon as The Empire Strikes Back comes out, I don't know if it directly contradicts anything in the book, but like the characterization is all wonky in this.
Yeah, you see it go in one direction, and then Empire like forcibly pulls it into another direction. So you kind of see it as like a not like a misstep, but it just I guess maybe that's the reason why I didn't really seek it out is because I just saw it as sort of like a almost like quote unquote like not real. Like
Well,
so
well,
like I
yeah.
didn't bother like going to read it. I'm like, well, why invest in something that's like not considered like what the story is, you know?
Well,
So
so that's very interesting that you put it like that because the thing that I kept thinking of when I finished it was, a lot of people were very upset and are still very upset about the decanonization of a lot of the expanded universe material after the Disney sale. And I was kind of like, of course they're doing that because they were about to make new movies. And I was trying to figure out why I sort of was not surprised at all and was like, yeah, I mean, of course, it's a no brainer. And why a lot of other fans had much larger reactions than mine. And I realized, the example of Splinter of the Mind's Eye from very early on basically says, the novels are kind of fun while you're waiting in between movies. But then when the movie comes out, that's the quote unquote real thing.
mhm.
And the very first example we have of that is Splinter of the Mind's Eye, this novel, and The Empire Strikes Back. Like it goes back that far, right?
Yeah.
Michael, you were the one who suggested, I don't know how cheekily, but you suggested the topic of this episode. I believe it was something along the lines of Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the true sequel to Star Wars question mark. Could you talk a little bit about what you meant by that or what about this subject you found compelling?
very obviously I meant it cheekily, but
I
it
don't know. I
the
don't know.
thing I love about Splinter of the Mind's Eye is it's like, this is what they thought Star Wars was gonna be next. Like, Harrison Ford's not coming back, and we're just gonna do serialized adventures where, like, Darth Vader is just like the Black Knight, and at the end of it, he just shows up in Act 3, and then he falls in a hole, like, that's he's just like a bad guy. Like, the thing I love about Splinter of the Mind's Eye is it doesn't feel like Episode 5, it feels like Star Wars 2. Like,
Mm.
that's the thing about it where I'm just like, "Oh, okay," and then, like, there's all kinds of stuff in here, in the book, I mean, here, well, there's all kinds of stuff in the book where I'm just it's a totally different conception of Star Wars to what we got. Like, down to there's a bit at the end of a chapter to I'll get back to this, sorry, I was gonna do the, like, how I read the book, but I'll get to that in a second. There's a bit
Mhm.
at the end of a chapter where Luke is like, "Oh, hang on one second," and he, like, takes a power pack out of a gun and puts it into his lightsaber to charge up his lightsaber, and I'm like, "No Star Wars has ever done this." This is like the very idea that the lightsabers have a battery is like so anomaly to, or like anathema to what Star Wars is now, that is why I find Splinter so interesting, because it's paradoxically both like this abandoned, fork in the road, but also it's like a complete roadmap to everything they've done with Star Wars in the sequel era, or like specifically the interquel era. Like Rebel One is like all about a kyber crystal. Like Solo is all about like God, what's the thing? Mimban. It's all, they have whole scenes on Mimban with a huge Imperial occupation. Even down to like Jedi Fallen Order, like you go into a Jedi temple and like crack a bunch of myths to open up like a crystal. Like it's such a roadmap to specifically the interquel era that I find it really interesting as both. It's
Interquel
both,
era. I don't know that
yeah.
I've ever heard that.
Neither have
Um,
I.
The between, I don't
yeah,
know, maybe
yeah.
I just
Yeah,
made
no,
that
no,
up,
no, it's
but
it's great. I like it.
it's that zone between episodes 3 and 4 that they've made 2 movies and some other stuff. And like that Rebels cartoon that I'm never gonna watch. All that, you know.
I've heard it's very good. I
Me
also haven't
too.
watched it.
I
Yeah.
I just don't care when the characters show up on other shows. I'm like, "Oh, look, it's a comic guy." I don't great.
I I think it's just a
Do I
medium.
clap?
Yeah, like I have a thing where like if I'm gonna watch something that's animated, um, I consider the visual art form of the animation says something, and that art form of that specific animation style for Rebels doesn't draw me in. And then on top of it, I just feel like it's kind of treated more like TV. So I'm like, just leave it. I hear it is very good though. I hear there are moments I've seen on YouTube that are pretty freaking cool. I'm not gonna lie, but like, I don't know if I want to devote like all the hours to it. Maybe it's my mistake, but I'm with you.
I don't have 5 seasons of time. I'm still trying to finish Severance, man. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, but something you said, Michael, is very interesting. And I actually think we said exactly the same thing on the Empire episode about how they could have done Star Wars 2, but instead we got The Empire Strikes Back, which is not at all what you expect from the sequel
Mm.
to the movie Star Wars. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, now it's sort of hard to put yourself in that headspace of like what the sequel to Star Wars you would imagine it would be, having just seen the one film.
Well, we talked
So
about an Empire, how Empire turned it into like the saga. Like this is now like a thing. The
and it's
Splinter of the
also like a
Mind
family
Eye.
saga.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and Splinter the Mind Eye is totally not a thing. It's definitely adventure of the week.
It's
And
Flash Gordon. It's what Lucas
yes,
originally envisioned, right? Like
and it
it's
and exactly that. And with the Flash Gordon thing you were talking about charging with the lightsaber, it's like, yeah, like I think it was still trying to do like a sci-fi story with fantasy elements instead of a fantasy story with sci-fi elements a little bit. Like it's weird. Like I know there's like some archetypes, but like they keep adding these things like I gotta charge my blaster and do this and that to like and then they throw in a lot more technical jargon and it's like, oh, this is like a sci-fi writer writing like a thing that happens to be called Star Wars, and he's treating it like any other sci-fi story. So, which is admirable, But I definitely saw how, like, I guess it was like no one figured out what Star Wars was yet
Mhm.
until the following movie.
Well, the interesting thing that I didn't even realize until yesterday when I was perusing the entry on Wikipedia to just cross my T's and dot my I's was that apparently Alan Dean Foster was writing this during the production of Star Wars. So he hadn't even seen the movie yet,
It kind of feels
which,
like that when you read it.
yeah, well, so I agree with you, John. It does very much feel like a sci-fi writer who is without more specific direction or instruction or without a lot of material to go on, really. He's sort of falling back on what he does, which is he writes
Mhm.
science fiction novels. And you very much get that sense that there's a lot of problem solving whenever they make a decision or like try to solve a problem about how to do something. They like walk through, well, we could do it this way, but then it
Yeah.
would mean like XYZ. It's like, well, you didn't have to explain why you're not doing that one. Like, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, it doesn't. So it actually kind of reminded me, Michael, you might appreciate this, of a classic Doctor Who serial. The beginning is really about familiarizing yourself with the world and you learn how the world works and you see the different factions that populate it and like you spend a lot of time like really like problem solving and world building until you have the climactic encounter and like solve the mystery at the end, and it's like you move on to another adventure. That is the exact opposite of what the film Star Wars was. Like, so much of it is really about, we're not going to spend a lot of time here at all, and we're not going to waste any time explaining every little thing to you, whereas
Exactly.
Splinter of the Mind's Eye does the exact opposite.
It was immediately obvious to me, that there was a disconnect, and it's funny because I didn't know that he didn't see the movie either. But when you read it, um, the first thing that really stuck out to me was the fact that they keep calling each other by name in conversation multiple times, and it's like, A, no one speaks like that in reality, and B, if you saw the movie, they never do that in the movie either. So, like, in the movie, they're not constantly going like, Luke, Leia, Luke, Leia, Luke, Leia, Leia, Luke. And it's just like, why do they keep saying each other's names at each other? Like, they're the only people in the room. And then the sci-fi nature of it too. Like, I think twice in the book, Luke uses the lightsaber as like a Swiss Army knife, and like only turns it on to like maybe like 5 inches to like pick a lock. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, this is like, it's an interesting idea, but like that's talking about the lightsaber as if it's not Excalibur. Like, that's talking
Mhm.
about the lightsaber like it's a tool that anyone can use. And it's like it's an interesting angle. There are little buttons and knobs and switches on the prop, so you can't fault someone from being original on that. But like, yeah, there's just a lot of things. And then as we get into the podcast later too, there's a lot of characterizations between Luke and Leia beyond the romance, where it's just like, I don't I didn't like, I could maybe see where he kind of got the idea for these actions, but in my head, I was like, there's a disconnect with the characters, as the book is going on. Not even thinking about Jedi or Empire, just thinking about A New Hope. I was like, there's a bit of a disconnect.
Well, but
Yeah,
again, though, like if you read the script for A New Hope, and if you haven't seen the actors like inhabiting those characters, like you're really kind of at a loss for characterization. So I mean, these characters are basically completely from the mind of Alan Dean Foster, like
Yeah.
like what he imagines
He probably
them
had
to
a
be.
farm boy hero and a princess with a feisty personality, and he just went with that.
mm.
But if you watch the movies, it's like, oh, there's something like you're inferring. It's like there's something more to it than that. And in the book, there's moments between the two of them where it's like, they would never have done that. Like, if they made a sequel to A New Hope, there's no way they would have done these things with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill after the performances they gave in the first one.
Yeah, it feels like a novelization of a conversation with George Lucas, like
Yes.
about the next Star Wars story, which that's the thing that fascinates me about it, is it really dwells in like this stuff that like you're saying, John, it's like wouldn't be in the movie. Like Leia's like the haunting impact of the interrogation droid from the first Star Wars, which is like just nobody cares in any of the movies, right? It's when you think about that, it's like, "Oh, whoa, right, of course that's a big deal." And then, like, even in the first chapter or so, Luke is having his, like, I'm just expositing about the state of the universe opening to the
Hmm.
book, when he's like, "I refused a title," and now there's all this stuff in the opening of the book. It's like, "Hey, don't worry, all your favorite characters are just where you left them, ready for another adventure." It really has that, like, next episode thing going on,
Yeah.
which is very funny considering the Star Wars 2 versus Episode 5 of it, but it doesn't feel like an epic saga, like you were saying about Empire. It feels like, funny enough, it feels like episode 2 of, like, Star Wars. Pew, 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 and, like, the original
Yeah.
triangle logo. Like, it just is
Yeah.
like
It feels like a TV movie a little
mhm,
bit. And I know
like an
the
old
purpose is
cereal.
like a
Yeah.
low budget movie, but you can make a low budget movie that has higher stakes, or like I don't want to say like more
Well,
depth because that sounds insulting, but like you can make a TV movie that still has like pathos to it. And this book, it just seems like another adventure, like you were saying,
Mhm.
Michael.
This is like the Disney Plus or, like, the Netflix show that comes after the movie where they just have to,
Yeah.
like, kinda really dwell on character stuff. Like, that's really all they can do.
This is much more like
Uh,
Caravan, the Ewok
mm,
movies. Like, it feels
mhm.
kind of like that sort of like, and here's a zany adventure with these characters type of thing.
John, you mentioned, I think it's pretty well established that this was commissioned with kind of the idea in the back of mind that, if Star Wars, the movie Star Wars, is not a success, that this story might be suitable for like a cheapo, lower budget sequel.
Hmm.
And along those lines, the guidelines that were given to Alan Dean Foster by George Lucas was no Han Solo because Harrison Ford had no contract, and there was a question whether or not he'd even be interested in coming back.
Every single time Harrison Ford came back for Star Wars, he was like, "Kill me,
Kill me.
Kill
every
me.
time." This is the one where you kill me, right?
And then poor Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew, was like, I guess I'm tagged with Han Solo, so I can't come back, even if I wanted to.
Can you imagine a Star Wars with no, like, the Millennium Falcon's just gone? Like, oh, it was just that one guy's ship from that one time. Like, who cares? Like, crazy. Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it. We just read it, and it's not.
yeah.
Yeah,
No.
the other dictum was no space battles because that's expensive.
Hmm.
And the third one, I believe, was to set it on a swamp planet so they could shoot it in studio and things kind of fall off into darkness. So it's sort of low budget. And you know what's interesting? Like, I was thinking those three things kind of do apply to The Empire Strikes Back because they
Yep.
get rid of Han Solo in it. There are no space battles. I mean, obviously, there's a huge battle sequence at the beginning, but there's no space battles. And a lot of it does happen on a swamp planet that was shot in a studio. While I was reading, though, I was imagining, what if they did use this as the basis for an actual film and they made it as an actual film? It's like you were saying, John, there were ways to do this
Hmm.
that would have worked.
It's funny because I feel like with The Empire Strikes Back, they do, as you mentioned, Josh, they do touch on themes that they use a lot in the book, like Luke's on a swamp planet for half the
Mhm.
movie. Han and Leia are now the Han and Luke role where they're on the run and they're getting to know each other and bond over the course of the movie.
Oh, good point.
Yeah,
No, that's
like
true.
that's also like the central plot to Split to the Mind's Eye, is like those two characters bonding and forming a romance, but now it's just Han and Leia. It's the same sort of thing. They could have done it, you know. Looking over the comic, I saw that like the comic is kind of like a hindsight thing, and they
Yes.
were
Mm.
intercutting things that were more Star Warsy from the movies into the comics. So there's like more scenes with Darth Vader being like making plans as compared to the book where he just shows up in like the last 50, no, 20 pages.
I sense
But
his
like,
presence. He's going to be here in Act
exactly.
3.
Yes, exactly. And 3PO has a lot more jokes because he's funnier in the movies than he is in the novel.
Well, I was just having the thought, Michael, you said this is sort of like a novelization of a description of a conversation that George Lucas had describing the sequel. I'm sure George Lucas described it as like it's kind of like a Flash Gordon serial. Like that statement with the lack of having seen the movie, I totally see how you write this off of that description.
Yeah, it feels like an artifact from a parallel world. It just like fell through a hole. That's the thing. I first read this like well after all the sequels came out because I just
Oh,
had never
really?
had the chance to read it before. Yeah,
Oh,
and
interesting. Interesting.
I was like, all right, I'm finally gonna check this thing out now that we're in this like deeply post sequel era, right? And I read it, I'm just like, oh wow, it's the thing that it still obsesses me about it. That I've said it like more than one time already. Is like it just feels like a roadmap to everything that came
Mm.
after, which is very funny considering the whole like pay Alan Dean Foster thing. Because like arguably, like if this is the roadmap to the rest of Star Wars, like you really got to pay that guy. It's like, whoa, it's like all in here. Points to book, you know.
Well,
What, are they
you
not
know,
paying him? What's going on with that? I
Oh,
don't
there
know.
was a whole there's a whole the I don't know if this will be in the pod, but they Disney argued that when they bought all the Star Wars stuff, they didn't have to pay any of their royalties anymore.
Oh yeah, I remember that now. I remember
So
that.
everybody was like, "No, that's not how the law works."
yeah,
We got a
Yeah.
couple of we got a
nice
couple of
try.
nice try.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, no, so it is interesting because Alan Dean Foster also ghost wrote the novelization of Star Wars, written by George Lucas. So the Kyber crystal was actually in I believe it's the third draft, not the shooting script for Star Wars: A New Hope, but the draft right before that more or less resembles the film we got. But there is the Kyber crystal in that draft that operates the way that it operates in this novel, where it's sort of like magnifies your your force powers or whatever. And they dropped that because it's a lot of stuff. It's sort of a hat on a hat. And it's like, well, what do you need the crystal for? Like, isn't it so like he can use the force without the crystal, but then he also needs the crystal to use the force? It's like a little confusing. So you can see like why they would get rid of that. But so you can see like I'm thinking a swamp planet. Here's this kyber crystal thing that I thought was pretty cool, but I ended up not using. Can't use this character. Make it cheap. The other interesting thing is that Alan Dean Foster says that in his conversations with George Lucas specifically told him that Darth Vader was he was sort of a flunky. He's not the real big bad of the galaxy. And you can see why Alan Dean Foster, the way that he used the Imperial governors as sort of the scary villains, right?
Yeah, that was
Uh,
very interesting, actually.
yeah, well, so which I think is actually kind of savvy and kind of makes sense. And they say in that conference room scene where Peter Cushing walks in the middle of the meeting and he says, the Emperor has just disbanded the Senate and the Imperial governors now have direct control over their territories, right? Something that's missing in, I mean, arguably in the movies themselves is you don't really know, you don't really see what life is like in the galaxy under the Empire.
Yeah, that reminds me of the bar scene in the book with the natives and everything like that. And
Mm.
I don't know, I was kind of taken aback a little bit at that scene where like the guy pours the alcohol on the ground and the native like licks it up and then he kicks him in the head. That's incredibly dark for Star Wars. But then I was thinking about like I might have been projecting, but like the old cliches of like fire water and stuff like that, and like
Mm.
alcohol with natives in America. And then I thought about like, did he just like transpose that into like these green aliens? And like, he's like, oh yeah, the natives are all addicted to the drink and they like will slurp it up off the ground. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Mm.
like,
There's
Yeah,
a
like when
lot of
well,
I
that.
read
so
that,
Mm.
I was like kind of offended and just been like, what is going on with this scene, you know?
it does like try to say like, hey, life under imperial rule is not
Bad.
good. Like, I mean, there's a reason why they're fighting this war. Whereas, in the movies, I think the political conflict and like the reality of the things that they're talking about, the idea that there's an evil dictator essentially ruling the galaxy and the empire sort of shows up on your planet and does whatever it wants. Like, I mean, not to cross over into like the empire did nothing wrong territory, but like the movies don't show you why the empire is so bad aside from huge kind of abstract things that we don't understand. Like, they blew up a planet. I mean, like, it's obviously bad, but like we don't
Pretty big deal.
see no, but not the way the movie shows it though. Because
That's
like
true. That's true.
we don't see anybody on the planet. We don't see the point of view of Alderaan. Like, we just see this very abstract thing where they blow up this planet in space and we don't have a connection to it. And it's also not something we really understand. It's like, we don't relate to seeing a planet blown up. Like, that's sort of too massive to really imagine. So that's what I'm saying.
Sure, and to be clear, I mean, like, yeah, the original trilogy definitely sanitizes the evil that the Empire does, just to make it known to the audience that they're evil. But to be clear, even when I took maybe some offense at that scene, like I didn't even think it was written with like malicious intent. Like I think it was just like a
Yeah.
something that like he thought about, like the way that you said it was like, oh, let's make this like a character thing and put some pathos into it. And it's just true, he did that. But I also feel like most of the time when he does it in the book, it kind of like reflects this old school perspective on many things, maybe that was still prevalent in the 70s. So like, so when he puts pathos into Leia, she gets really upset a lot that she's covered in mud. And it's like she
Right.
wouldn't be upset over that. And then like for no reason whatsoever, she has like a panic attack and starts screaming. And Luke has to calm her down. It's like she wouldn't do that. And it's like, and it's just like,
Mhm.
but he's like he's projecting on her because like she's the princess and Luke is the hero, but like Luke can have a panic attack, or like why are any of them having a panic attack? It's like, and then Michael, you mentioned before how she thinks a lot about the interrogation. I think that's actually kind of cool. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they kind of just like Josh was saying, they kind of just brush all the other shit under the rug in the movie. But yeah, it's like it's just stuff like that. I don't know. Like I feel like a lot of the characterizations is like I see what they're doing. They're trying to get deeper into the characters, but like I feel like they're using like an old school lens
Oh,
how to
very.
look at things back then. So it kind of just
Yeah.
comes across as that like, oh yeah, she's the princess. Of course she's going to act really entitled and like blow their cover because she feels like she's insulted. You know, it's just like
Yeah, that's
stuff like that. It's like, oh, she definitely, you know, she's a girl and Luke's got to
mhm.
like put her in her place. It's like, oh,
Well, yeah,
Jesus.
it's like a book written in 1978 based on
Yeah,
1930s serials. So like the bar scene you're describing has a very like colonialism is bad thing. Like there's no denying that, right? Like it shows
true.
this dark edge of imperial colonialism, which the movies lack. But at the same time, and even when like quote unquote praising the quote unquote natives, like he calls them Aborigine warriors, and it's like I don't
Hmm.
know if that's I don't know if that's it, man. Like I don't know, you
Yeah,
know, like there's all like there's, but it's we're here, you know, it's like again, like the 30s, 78 to 2022 of it all. Like there's it's like 50 years of room at least in one of
hmm,
those interchanges. So it's you know, like sure. But also to your point, like Leia is so retrograde through most of the book, but
yeah.
also it's like no actual quote unquote unquote Star Wars sequel, prequel, whatever has Leia like pick up a lightsaber and get into a fight with Vader.
Very
That's
true.
true.
Like this
Yeah,
this the
that's a
book
very
goes
good point.
way out of its way to be like Leia is not force sensitive. She's just a lady. She's just a stupid girl, but also like she like cuts Vader's mask open with like the lightsaber and gets like a rah rah moment. Like it's sick. Like
Yeah,
there's
she has like a almost like a longer and better duel with Vader than Luke does,
yeah, she
arguably.
gets the Force Awakens fight
Mhm.
basically like flipped,
Yeah,
right? Like
Yeah,
yeah.
it is again like a weird roadmap in that way, but it is yeah, it's strange. Like the same book also has like, oh, who's gonna be the Force person? Oh, just girl Obi-Wan. Don't worry about it. It's just
yep.
girl. It's Holland's just
Right.
like, what if we just got like a girl Obi-Wan? I don't know. We'll figure that out. It's fine.
She's like a little kookier, but that's about it.
That's it. Like,
Even in the
Luke
comics, she looks
boy.
like a female Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is funny.
mhm.
Um, talking about the natives too, I was also I found it interesting at the end part of the book where they get ambushed by the natives that are in the caves, and like I think they just like straight up like murder like half of them, and then like one's running away, and Leia's like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you with my axe," and then like she almost gets away with it, and then you find out that they're the good guys, which you kind of see coming from a mile away. And then the natives are like, "Oh yeah, we're totally fine with you killing all of our friends. It's totally cool. We're cool with death here." And it's like, what the hell? So it's like, so in a
Yeah.
ironic way, they sanitize that because like, oh, they're natives. They don't matter. They're not real people.
Right,
You
There's
right.
like
know?
the
And,
Yeah.
that
and
bit
it's
in the
like,
book yeah.
yeah,
Hala
it's like,
literally
oh,
says something like, I'm not literally because 'cause I'm gonna be paraphrasing, but
mhm,
it's like they're primitives, they have a more rudimentary understanding of death, they don't care that you killed 4 of their guys, and it's like,
Right.
it's like, who gives a
"Alright,
shit?
cool, let's just get to the next scene, let's just
Yeah.
walk to the same set with a table in it, great, let's get there." Like,
Yeah.
it just like you said, Josh, it feels like a Doctor Who cave. We're like, "Cool,
Right.
we got
Yes.
the one cave, we are using the hell out of it this week." Like
Even the monsters that they describe are
mhm.
kind of like, I think purposefully amorphous so that
Oh, yeah.
the whatever the budget is, they can design the creature to that. So he's like, yeah, and the lake, they get attacked by this thing. Like, and they don't quite describe it very well. It's like a
It's like an
blob sort of
amorphous
thing.
ghost, like some sort of
Yeah,
easy to do optical printing effect. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's
exactly.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was definitely a six-parter of Doctor Who
Mhm.
that only really had like
Same.
3
I was
episodes
gonna say
worth.
the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
jammed
where
everything into episode 6. Like
yes,
episode 4 and 5 are just people sitting in rooms. Like it has that extreme 6-part pacing. Yes.
a lot of captures and escapes,
Mhm.
and
Hmm.
there's a lot of we spend a lot of time in that cave, man.
I thought they visually could have been cool with the glowing moss and all that stuff. And that could have been neat.
What's cool too is you can see the budget. You can like read the budget in terms of like, okay, they go to the Imperial thing. It's this
Yeah.
reused temple. So we can shoot all those scenes and they blow up the Imperial base when they're running out and they go to this temple that looks just the same, but it's dirty and covered in moss. Just like you can see, like that's one of those things I really enjoy about Splinter, where it's like you can see the budget of this idea. It truly
Mhm.
feels like this weirdly practical next thing and start like it's so bizarre. It's this weird artifact.
The more I imagine what the film version of this would have looked like, the more I kind of wish it existed.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the
I
the
kind of
scary
wish
thing is, I mean, when you were talking earlier about they could have shot it, like, now in the age of, like, ultra deep fakes, they could just make this thing. Like, that's the
they
They
terrifying
could.
part,
could.
is they could just, like, make it. Like, don't do it, but
Please don't do it.
please don't.
What sucks though is that if they were to make it now, if somebody were to make it now,
Mm.
like it would lack all of the charm, the interesting things that I think would be cool about what that movie would have been like.
Yeah, it wouldn't be
Like,
shot on video. Like, yeah, like, all
The
of
yeah.
the
low
yeah,
budget
like,
grittiness of it.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
when I say that I wish that this movie existed, I mean the very budgetary constrained one shot with the, like, 1979 technology. Like, I wanna see that rendering of this story on screen, not the, like, "We need more content. How much do you need?" Like, "It doesn't matter. Here's a check, and you fill in the amount."
You just gotta do 6 episodes. We don't give a shit what's in them. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I
Speaking of
I
6
agree with you,
episodes, yeah.
Josh. Like, I wish that when, like, the novel fell through that hole in time I was talking about, like, a laser disc came with it, right? Like, I wish we got, like, or, like, the VHS, like, clattered out of the hole too. Like, wish we got to, like, watch it, right? Like, I'm so with you on that. Like, holiday special quality
Yes,
version of
exactly. I
it,
was gonna
right?
say, I mean, like, you kinda get a
Mm.
glimpse of what it would have been like with the holiday special. I don't know that it would have been shot on video, probably would have been shot on film, but, like, the way the holiday special uses, like, the props and the costumes that were left over,
Mhm.
I don't know that we've ever really seen the low budget version of what a film in this universe
Mm.
would look like. I mean, George Lucas would probably say, "You saw it, like, that was Star Wars."
It was the
Well,
first one,
I
yeah.
guess
Yeah.
the Ewok movies are that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
They have the
Mm.
same sort of like it looks kinda like Star Wars, and it's all shot in, like, the, Northern California, like, right in George Lucas's backyard. If you look really hard, you can see, like, Francis Ford Coppola drinking wine on, like, a hill in the background. I'm making that up, I have no idea. I had a question, though, because in my head, I'm thinking, like, "Okay, this is supposed to be a movie, so you have some, uh, 2 new characters, basically, Hala and the Imperial." And in my head, like, I was trying to picture, like, who the Imperial would be, and, like, Powers Booth just kept coming into my head.
Ooh, yeah, I like
Good.
that. Yeah,
That's
Because
you're
he's like
right.
good.
scary guy with a mustache who's really gruff. It's like Powers Booth, 1970s Powers Booth. Fuck yeah.
Though you kind of was he, like, a little buffoonish?
They started off making him intimidating, and I think to make the other bad guys more intimidating, they made
Yeah,
them
like, he
scarier than him. So he was afraid of his superiors, but he was a complete monster to his the people that were below him. Um
yeah,
yeah, so yeah, they made him like more of a buffoon when he's talking to the governor, and then when he's talking to Vader, he's like basically like scared shitless, I think,
right.
or vice versa.
Speaking of Vader, one thing that I did like, obviously the characterization doesn't comport at all with the Vader that we, would come to know.
Yeah, this guy
Um,
is not the head character of the Skywalker saga. He's just
no,
some
Mhm.
no.
guy. Like, he's just a
Yeah,
guy. What is also I before I forget, again, like, going back, I didn't realize until you said this came out of, like, pre the movie coming out, but in the book, rereading it, it took me I had to, like, reread this paragraph 4 or 5 times because they describe Vader's lightsaber as also being blue, which
Oh
is a
yeah.
thing I remember from, like, the first cut of Star Wars, and they changed it because it, like, doesn't it looks confusing, right?
you're
But,
right,
like,
yeah.
all lightsabers had blue beams
Mhm.
originally, and I
Mhm.
just reading that, and like, it clicked in my head of, like, "Whoa, this is so far back." Like, it's this it yeah, anyway, sorry.
No, I mean, that's a good point. I don't know that that even registered with me,
It registered
weirdly,
with me
like
when I read it because
yeah.
as Michael said, I reread that. I was like, wait, whose lightsaber are they talking about? And it's like
Mhm.
they're talking about Vader's. And then in my head, I was like, I'm not sure if this guy saw Star Wars, or like, or
Yeah,
maybe he saw a rough cut and the special
right.
effects
Yeah.
like weren't done yet. I was like, maybe he saw like a work print with no special effects or something.
Mhm.
A little bit of an off topic thing, but I remember my brother had a Return of the Jedi like trucker hat back in the 80s, and I remember that the lightsabers were switched on that hat, which I think was part of some of the first posters. So Luke had a red one, and Vader had a blue one, not even green yet. And that was something that, as a little kid, I was like, "That's not right." Like,
Mhm.
and it just stuck with me forever. That like that was like that image in my head.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I don't know if this was like an ex post facto sort of a justification, but or an ipso facto. I should never try to speak Latin.
Erso
The-
ipso
yeah,
facto tacto.
Man, I
But
don't know.
there was an explanation that that was not a mistake, that that was intentional symbolism, that, Luke has a red lightsaber to show that he has the dark side in him and maybe would be going to the dark side in this
Oh,
movie, and that Vader has the blue lightsaber to show that he perhaps has good in him. But that said, though, you are correct about the blue lightsaber because if you see the initial trailers for Revenge of the Jedi, Luke has a blue lightsaber on the
yep.
sand barge, and they changed it to green because they had trouble making it stand out against the sky.
Yeah, there's probably like 15 expanded universe novels explaining why his
Yes.
is green, but like it's just like it didn't match with the sky, guys. Come on.
Mhm.
I on Instagram I get things aimed at me because of algorithms, and every now and then I'll see like Star Wars stuff that goes into that like kind of, I don't want to say bullshit, but like, but it's just like they start talking about like why the deep reasoning as to why Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber. He's like Samuel Jackson just wanted the purple
He
lightsaber,
just
guys. That's
wanted
why
a
he
purple.
has
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
it's not.
That's
It's
why
not.
he
Yeah,
has one. It's not because of his like
it's
level
not.
7 kung fu Jedi training.
Yeah, it's none of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when there are decisions that are made from very mundane reasons, like, the green dye was closer to me than the blue that day, and, like,
Yeah.
that does kind of lend itself to some sort of logic justification.
Or like Han Solo's pants have like sometimes have a red stripe or a yellow stripe, and there's like,
Mhm.
oh, that's his ranking of whatever. And it's like, he's just a fucking pirate that likes stripes
Dude
on his
owns
pants.
2 pants. Like,
Yeah,
what do
I
you
know.
want? Like, come
He owns
on.
he
Well,
owns
it goes down to, like, Obi-Wan's, disguise on Tatooine is, like, the Jedi uniform,
yeah,
Yeah.
which doesn't make any sense. Like,
because
I was
Uncle
No.
just
Owen's dressed as a Jedi. Like, they're all
exactly,
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
Jawas
It's
are
just
exactly.
dressed as Jedi.
Tatooine outfits, exactly. Like, if
Yeah.
anything, Luke's outfit in Jedi Return of the Jedi should be the Jedi outfit, right? Like, they should all be in, like, cool black outfits with, like, the dope triangle on it. Like, it if
Well,
anything, right?
They
so
almost
what's
did
so
that with the
interesting,
prequels, right?
the concept art for the Jedi, particularly for Obi-Wan Kenobi for The Phantom Menace, they are taking inspiration from what Luke was wearing in Return of the Jedi.
They look more like ninja like in
Cool.
the
Yes.
graphic. Yeah, and they have
Do
like
that.
almost like samurai like ponytails and stuff, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly.
I have a lot of reasons to build a time machine, but I'm adding one to the list right now, and it's this. It's this.
Let me see if I can find an image while you guys talk, and I'll just put it in the chat.
Heck
But
yeah.
so what I was saying about Vader, though, while again it is a completely different character from the one that we know, I thought he was portrayed pretty fearsomely. I thought that that was a very effective sequence when he shows up and he's toying with Leia.
Well,
He's
even when
like,
he's dealing with Obi-Wan Kenobi, he has a penchant for talking shit to his opponents as he's doing it, at least
Mhm.
from A New Hope. But at least in A New
yeah,
Hope,
that's
there
true.
was there, but it makes sense in A New Hope because he has an established relationship with him. So he's trying to prove something to Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I could kind of see where Alan Dean Foster was coming from when he wrote the duel with Leia and Luke. I was like, yeah, I could kind of see from like the scene from A New Hope how he can write him like that. But there are elements of Empire in there, throwing the rocks,
Yep.
and even like the way he walks through Echo Base and Hoth,
Mm.
like leading the troops, like he led the troops at the end of the climax of Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I'm like, I could definitely see like movie Vader doing the same thing, just kind of walking out there, not being too concerned about his own safety and just entering the fray.
And you also kind of get the impression that Alan Dean Foster thinks he's just like a guy wearing a mask and a suit. I mean, not that like he needs the suit for survival.
Yeah,
He
like
talks about his, like, grotesque breathing a few times
mm,
under there, so I think he gets the like injured nature of the guy in there. But yeah, like you say, I don't think it's like a life sustaining apparatus in the same way. What is really interesting to me too is that like he takes damage, like
Mm.
Yeah.
as opposed to in the movies where like he can just hold out his hand and like catch blaster bolts and just be like, oh, do blasters today. Oh, you got me. But like in this, Leia shoots him with a sniper rifle, which is awesome, and they should sneak that into a Star Wars movie. I mean, come on.
That's true.
Oh wait, it's called Rogue One. Never mind. But he just gets like a dent in his armor, and then like later in the Luke and Vader fight, he like caves in a section of Vader's armor. Like there's just much more like bad night kind of thing.
Yes.
He's
Mhm.
really feels like, I think I said it earlier, but he feels like the Black Knight, who's just like dun dun dun. He has like a big scary music cue,
Yeah.
and it's weird. Like even down to when Vader first shows up and is talking to Skywalker, he's like, "It took me a long time to figure out it was you who shot me in the thing in the trench," and it was like, wait. What? Like we all know that, dude. What are you talking about? Like, come on. Like, it's like the what's known and what's not known. I could just talk about that forever. I could talk about that as long as I could talk about weird lightsaber idiosyncrasies, honestly.
I feel like if Darth Vader went home that night and turned on space TV, there would have been like a news article like, "This young boy, Luke Skywalker, blew up the Death Star," and he'd be like, "Oh, it's him." Like, I
This
think he just
guy,
like I don't think he
Luke
would need
Sky. Yeah.
spies to figure that out. I think
Well,
people would kind of just know.
well, to be fair, there is a run in
Right.
the
The Cassidy and Gillen comic, right?
yes,
It is a very
the
good moment in that comics too.
Mhm.
yeah, the moment when Vader finds out the identity of who blew up the Death Star. They really make a meal out of that in the Marvel comics, and it's very cool.
Yeah. But that scene in the comic is so much about like, my son, my beautiful birthday boy, I can have my beautiful birthday boy back. As
Right.
opposed to like in this book where Vader's just like, we could be pals, cutting guys with cool swords, man. Just join me. Black is a better color. He doesn't even try and recruit him, actually. Like in the book, he's like, I'm going to torture you with a lightsaber, and then I'm going to torture you with a lightsaber. Ha ha! It's just a bad guy. He's just like,
How do we
like you said,
also?
like the goon. He's a heavy.
Yeah, he's totally that, and it's almost like there's a little bit of like the Kylo Ren sort of messiness to Vader. That's in the book. Like, because I feel
Mhm.
like Kylo Ren is like unrefined, which is like a definition of his character, and I feel Vader is just like all image in this book. And yet again, not to just reiterate, but like a Kylo Ren, I feel like is all about his image. So he wears the helmet for no reason. He takes damage and he's just kind of like rough and gruff, and uh, there's a not a less of that Vader sort of sophistication. Like I feel like
Mhm.
he is a Black Knight, but like
Mm.
I feel like the way that you're talking about him, Michael, is like he's the Black Knight that like guards the bridge, and he's like, I'm the bad guy, and I
Well,
feel like
like
he's much
right at
more
the
of
end,
like a elevated knight and like a fantasy sense of like a mythical sort of end all be all sort of like archangel sort of archetype. If that makes any sense, I don't know.
yeah. Whereas in the book, he feels like a goon, like a heavy, like that. The end of the after he's fallen down a hole, like Luke is like, I can still feel his presence in the Force, like the scent of sulfur, and I'm just like, okay, man, this is so, like so camp. This is so the other direction that
Yeah,
it's so like I just love how like old school serially Flash Gordon-y again, like it feels. He's just like,
it's
he'll be back. We thought we defeated him, but he'll be back next time.
dude. It's
Like
so
he
funny
feels
you
like
mentioned that.
Claw from Inspector Gadget.
Yes, exactly.
Mm,
And I was talking
rah.
to Josh about this the other night, and I was saying how like I thought it was hysterical how he falls down the hole, and kind of like an Austin Powers movie, Luke looks over the hole and he's like, "Oh, he's still alive. Okay, cool." And like it just kind of goes on. It's
And
like,
they just leave.
yeah,
It's like he's in the hole. I don't know.
it's like I guess it's one of those things
I
where
mean, it's a
it's
deep hole, to be fair.
like I don't know, like
Yeah.
in A New Hope, Vader gets hit with in the TIE fighter, you see him spin out. But,
Mhm.
like, the movie kinda shows you that he's still alive, but there's nothing in Vader spinning out that makes me think that he would have died anyway. But I
Hmm.
guess using the same sort of logic, they're like, I guess we have to just announce to the audience at all times that he's still alive unless we explicitly say so. So it
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, it's
takes like any sort of surprise out of him coming back in like the second sequel, you know,
But
which
yeah,
would have
but
been
it's the
much more
opposite.
better if he just like was like, oh, he survived the hole instead of them like announcing it. I don't know.
But it's the opposite impulse to what like what you're talking about there, because this one is like, don't worry, all the toys are still on the shelf for next adventure. Like,
Yes.
Vader's fine, he's gonna get a shiny new suit. Like, it's
no, I
about
mean,
like it's like I was saying, like the toys on the shelf thing of like
Yeah.
everybody's just how you left them, and at the end, they're just how you left them.
yeah, well, that is very much this is the next episode, like, of
Mhm.
this series, serial, whatever you wanna call it. It's funny, you're just making me think it sort of robs the surprise of Vader returning in, like, the second sequel. But, Michael, it's kinda like season 8, The Master, the Roger Delgado Master, where he's the villain in every story. They go back to Doctor Who, and it's kind of like, at a certain point, he's gonna come back because he was in the last 4 episodes, he's probably gonna be in the next one.
I've been trying to hold back my Doctor Who references because I do a Doctor Who podcast, and I'm already
No, it's okay.
infringing on your show enough.
It's okay. You can release the break on that because I'm here for it.
Oh, great. The Vader in this book feels like the Anthony Ainley
The Anthony
Master,
Ainley
where
Master.
he
Yeah.
shows up and they're like, "You died," and he's like, "I lived," and it's like, that's it. That's all you get. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, wash your hands of it. That's the explanation. Like, I survived. Gotcha, baby. Like, that's it. That's all you get.
So, but there is kind of but that said, I mean, obviously we're poking fun at it, but like that is a valid
Lovingly,
interpretation.
lovingly.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, not even having seen Star Wars, like that is a valid understanding of how the series is going to work.
Yeah, if you read the
Yeah.
overarching material at the time Alan Dean Foster started this novel, was like 10% the Star Wars we got, right? So, like, his conception of Star Wars is just I know, I feel like I've said this 1,000 times now, it's just so radically different as a result, and that's what I don't
Yeah.
think yeah.
And it's not necessarily like uh inherently wrong. It's like, what else can this guy infer from the very little information that he got at the time? You
It's
know?
Right.
too early. He's the second thing. He can't be wrong. Like,
Right.
literally, like everything else after that is just like, no, that's not how we want to go with it. But it's like he can't. I'm sorry, like he can't be wrong. He's item two. Like it's like that's what's cool.
So, what's so interesting about that? So, I recently read Secrets of the Force, an unauthorized oral history of Star Wars by
Mm.
Edward Gross and Mark A. Altman. And
Oh, I love those guys. Oh, I
yeah,
gotta find that.
and they have some fascinating new interviews, like a new interview with Alan Dean Foster, where he says that he didn't like The Empire Strikes Back. He hated that Vader was Luke's father.
Hmm.
And he said that he felt that the prequels existed solely to justify that twist. He was really not into where the series went subsequently. And after you said what you just said, like I could see like he felt some ownership, some understanding of like what this whole thing was supposed to be.
Didn't he write like an absolutely terrible episode 9 pitch at some
Yes,
point in the sequel era? Like
he did.
What?
just
Well,
fully
no,
bad. Like,
yes, no, he did.
it was crazy. It was like the Borg, basically. It's like some very weird stuff.
Oh,
The one thing I remember was that Rey is revealed to be like a droid or something.
That's what it is. Yeah, she's like
Yeah.
she's a feeling droid that can connect to the Force, which is
Yeah.
so crazy.
okay. Put some Blade Runner in there, I guess.
It's not crazier than George Lucas's plan for Episode 7, which was they were going to shrink down and go into the Force and meet the midichlorians who were
I
people.
don't know if that
Like,
was literally his pitch.
What
I don't
are
know.
you talking
Uh,
about?
I've heard it more than one time. Like, it
Well,
feels like it wasn't not his pitch.
I don't know. Well, that's a topic for a whole
I just
other
want to
episode.
see every other Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go to like the gallery of parallel Star Wars. Take
Well,
me there.
Me too, man.
now that
Ugh.
you mentioned the sequels, I think there's it might not be the same exact relationship, but I feel like there's some odd similarity with like somebody's writing the sequel with as little information as they possibly can, to make it as interesting as they possibly can, and then
Except they made
things
it.
come out different. Yeah, so I feel like with the Force Awakens, Ryan Johnson and J.J. Abrams, like famously, I think he was trying to write Episode 8 while they were shooting Episode 7.
Mhm.
Yes.
and they would have talks about what they were doing, but it's very clear that like they weren't in sync with what they like. It's like, so I think at the yeah, I think even Mark Hamill was talking about how at the end of like episode 7, um they thought they're going to have like an image of like floating rocks around him and stuff like that to show how powerful he was, but they didn't do it. So they were still unclear as to where they were going to be. Then Ryan Johnson does his thing, and which is totally different, and then JJ sees it, and
And then
then he
Colin
does his
Trevorrow
thing,
releases the Book of
and then
Henry
like
and is
and
promptly fired.
it's just one of those
And
things where
then
it's like but it's just one of those things where it's like like a disconnect as to like who the
So,
people
well,
telling the stories and and like playing hot potato with the story,
Mhm.
and then having like
right.
different ideas of where it should have gone.
Except the example you just used, they both had like 40 years of Star Wars to rely on to create
Mhm.
some like
Sure,
unifying. It's like, I mean,
it's not
like,
exactly one to one, but there's
yeah.
definitely like a
So,
similarity with the hot potato thing.
right. Yeah, for sure. But the interesting thing there, though, is that they're just two flavors of Star Wars that are reaching for this platonic kind of Star Wars vibe,
Hmm.
and what one filmmaker latches onto is like not exactly what the other filmmaker latches onto. They don't necessarily contradict each other.
No,
Mm.
but it's one of those things where the direction was definitely heading one way, and then it was kind of taken another way, and then it went back to the original way, or at least, and it's just
Yeah.
like you can see the zigzag happening in real time, you know,
Mm.
Yeah,
and
well, that's
which
yeah.
actually makes it kind of more interesting because they both should have had more conversations about that while they were doing
Well,
it.
no, I disagree to the extent that I contend the sequel trilogy would have worked out totally fine in the end had the third film had
A
a
third
different.
different director.
Yes,
Yeah, I agree.
because
Even the shooting script of Duel of the Fates proves that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Colin Trevorrow script is like that would have fit somehow with that trilogy.
totally setting aside quality for the sole reason that a third director would have had to work with the two films that were already
Yes.
made and
Mhm.
figured out how to synthesize a satisfying conclusion to the story that they were laying out. So, no matter who it was, if it were Colin Trevorrow or somebody else, the only problem is when you go back to the creative voice of the first one,
Mhm.
because then what happens is, I'm not saying that this is anyone's fault, it's just how creativity works and how like the voices work.
It's
Like
inevitable. You're
that
gonna have like a one black sheep of that three, like
yeah.
the weird sandwich. Yeah.
Yeah, so then all of a sudden you have the middle movie kind of feeling like an anomaly, and the third one trying to reconnect with an idea that was sort of deviated from.
It's just bringing back the guy who did 7 to do 9, you building in, like, a narrative of quote, unquote, "correction," or, like, going
Right.
like,
Mhm.
Yes.
you bake in the perception of a subtext, right? Like, there's
Right.
all that
Right.
crap, like,
Yeah.
There's baggage that
yeah.
goes with it.
Yeah. So in actuality, I totally understand the thought process. It's like, okay, we already, for whatever reason, Colin Trevorrow left. I don't know that we'll ever know exactly why that happened.
They
Um,
saw the Book of Henry. I
I
can
don't.
just we can
I
come
mean,
on.
I don't
The
know.
timing is literally the weekend, like, it's the weekend, the week after. Like, it's not it's not rocket surgery.
Well, but the point is you have a release date locked in. You're running out of time. You've already used all this development time. You need a director to jump in who can make a movie, who can like hop onto a moving train. The idea that you would go to someone you already have a rapport with, you
Mhm.
already trust, you already know
Mhm.
can do it. I totally understand from like a real world practical standpoint why that makes a lot of sense to do.
I
We're
would
It was like
also
a
argue that the monkey wrench was probably the bigger monkey wrench is probably Carrie Fisher passing away
Mhm.
unexpectedly, and that was
well,
just
yeah,
like
Mhm.
they could not come up with a consensus as to what to do with that
yeah.
unfortunate event. Because I feel like even with like the Henry movie, if that bombs, that's sort of like maybe they'll have like a tighter leash on him, but I'm not sure if they want to go through the hassle of getting another director. Like as long as he wasn't showing up to set drunk and punching people in the face, they probably would be able to work with him.
Yeah.
You know,
I
Yeah.
mean,
a lot of
there is
people like fail upwards, so I feel like they would be like fine with it. Not that he was a bad filmmaker, but you know what I'm trying
it
to say. If they made Splinter of the Mind's Eye, what was it, 1978 or 79? Who do you think would
John
have directed
Carpenter.
it back then? John Carpenter.
God, I wish. Oh.
I was thinking a similar thing, but right off of Halloween.
just because it's before. If they could just get him in an intersection because they're in the same neck of the woods, they could have got Ridley Scott like pre-Alien to
Oh,
do
Well,
he
Splinter,
would have
which
done it
would have
instead
been
of because Alien
sick.
came out in '79.
Right, right.
He probably would have gotten him.
Ridley Scott had just made The Duelist, which I
Mm.
think was his first movie.
Yes, it was. It was his
Yes,
first feature film.
which I believe came out in 77.
I think so. It's a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah,
It's really
no,
I'm
good.
just over here
but
frantically wikiing. I have no idea.
It's
but
so
like
good.
like so many other directors, he goes and sees Star Wars in 1977, and he comes out and he's like, "Fuck, what the fuck am I doing?
Mhm.
Like I'm out here making period pieces, and this fucking guy is doing Star Wars. Like I need to get with the program." And the next movie he does, he makes Alien, and then he makes Blade Runner, right?
Yeah,
And
So
also,
sees Star
Alien's a
Wars.
low budget B movie sort of thing, and he's like, "I can make this good." And they totally would have done that with Splinter of the Mind's Eye.
Well,
so Michael,
that's
I think you're onto something. Like
well,
he
yeah, like
he
literally
would have been
he saw Star Wars, he poached the team from Jodorowsky's Dune when that collapsed, and he made Alien. Like
That's
that's
a great
what
yeah.
happened. Like
Yeah.
That's a great
it's
documentary, by the way.
it's
Everyone should check that out.
a
It's
fine
fucking
Sony
sick.
product. Wink, wink. Hashtag
God,
ad.
Ridley Scott's Star Wars. That would have been so cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. Like the timing, it's
And
very.
that, it,
It's. I mean, Kirshner's an awesome get. Don't get me
oh
wrong,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like,
But I
man,
think
can you
Ridley Scott
imagine?
would have made I mean, after seeing Alien and Blade Runner and Legend, he would have made fantastic sets, with whether it's be the cave or the temple where they get the crystal.
Mhm.
No,
And
yeah, totally. Yeah.
and
Oh
there's a
yeah.
total literal Cthulhu reference of where the statue and the temple. So he would have been all about that shit.
Oh
Like
yeah.
he would have
Ian
made it really
Holm as
fucking
Granum would have
cool.
been killer. Like just transpose that cast. Like it's
Hmm.
yeah.
And you know what's so interesting about that? So in this kind of counterfactual that we're talking about, like in this timeline, I feel like Ridley Scott would have made a way better movie than anyone was expecting and may have like rejuvenated this franchise, right?
Yeah.
So in this scenario, Star Wars wasn't a smash hit, and George Lucas is just like trying to get some more money out of the costumes and props. So he would have probably been fine to let some guy who's like, I really have an idea for this and I'm really going to do a job, just like let me do my thing and you can trust it. He probably wouldn't have been so like micromanaging the way that
Have you seen Scott's Ridley Grams, the little drawings he does? He would have just taken Lucas through a book of those, and Lucas would have been like,
Mhm.
"All right, I've seen the movie. Go."
He
Just go,
storyboards
man.
everything, and he's
Yeah.
a fantastic artist. Like he's a great
Amazing.
Dude,
draftsman.
now I really wish this movie existed.
I,
And,
I'm sorry. I don't, you're welcome. I don't even know.
God damn, you're
Um,
welcome.
It's weird.
One last thing I want to touch on before we wrap up, the interesting implications of this regarding canonicity. Because again, like I sort of alluded to in the beginning, not only is this the first sequel to Star Wars, but it's also the very first expanded universe material to be contradicted.
It's like double extra legends. Yeah.
Yeah, right. I think fandom's relationship to canon is to me a source of somewhat endless fascination. Like I don't understand why there's this obsession with what happened versus what didn't happen because none of it happened. I mean, I guess I don't really have a question, but
I mean, it's about the investment of time. People want their investment of time to have counted.
Mhm.
So they want the things to have counted. Like I made a joke earlier about Sony, so I'll just say it. I work for Sony as a social media person, and I can tell you from having worked on the social media for Spider-Man movies, like people will take shit in the background of a trailer and construct an entire universe that has nothing to do with what the actual people making the actual movies have to do with any of it, right? Like
right.
like it's all a splinter of the mind's eye, wistfully looking into the distance. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
Episode title.
There you go.
Forget it, Jake. It's all a splinter in the mind's eye.
I even said it in the beginning of this conversation that I think one of the reasons why I didn't read Splinter of the Mind's Eye is because I knew that it was just like this thing that didn't count.
Right.
And I didn't even care that much about the EU. I've read a couple of his novels because I like Star Wars and I need to get a fix, But on top of that, I just heard that the relationships were oh yeah, Luke and Leia might love each other and all these things. And I was like, it sounded so far removed from what I knew as Star Wars. I was like, I'll just put it to the side. That being said, though, when it comes to canon, to me, it's whatever's in the movie theater. that to me,
Mhm.
that is it. So for many,
Yeah.
many, many years, Boba Fett was in the comics and in the novels and stuff like that. And hey, we all love Boba Fett. But I was like, yeah, but I mean, like, he's dead. You know, it's one
Who
of those things
cares? Yeah.
where it's just like one of those things like, oh, like in this new comic, Boba Fett sends his kid to college and blah blah blah. Blah. I'm making this up. And then it's like, and it's just like, yeah, but like he died in the Starlight pit. It
They
burped
just,
and
like,
he's dead.
fell in a hole. Who
Yeah,
cares? Like, who
it's like the
cares?
Star Wars Anyway Return of the Jedi, and I liked all the other stuff as like a fun thing, which is what it is. But I never took it as like sacrosanct. Like I never took it as like we were referring to Star Wars as like coming down from the mountain before. Like I never took it as like the official
Yeah,
word, unless it was on the movie theater, in which case I'm like, this is what they really want us to know and think, and then
right.
that's
Well,
that's the story.
I said this on some podcast. I don't know if it was for this show or in what order. At some point before recording this, I said something to the effect of, I think Star Wars is kind of inseparable from the medium of film because it's not an idea that was adapted into a film. Like it was
Mhm.
conceived of as a cinematic experience. And I think that there's something to be said for whatever medium originates the, for lack of a better word, property or franchise
Sure.
or whatever. There's something about that medium that sort of has an authoritative weight, right? So like while there are examples, like you could say Game of Thrones, arguably the success, the cultural impact of the show, in some ways it's really an argument
That's its own
superseded
can of worms, but go ahead.
the idea that true quote unquote Game of Thrones fans are still waiting to find out what happens, right?
Yeah,
Right? Like
yeah, because there's a book first.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I first discovered Splinter of the Mind's Eye. I was in fifth grade in my elementary school, and I was going through the bookshelf in my classroom, and they had all these, dusty old books or whatever. And this was like the early '90s, so there were still things on the shelf from 15 years ago, right? And I came across a Star Wars book that I had never heard of before, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I don't know if I said fuck in my fifth grade mind. I very well may have. I don't quite recall
I
exactly
did.
when I learned to express myself so colorfully, but and I read it and I was crushingly disappointed because it was very boring. At least, I mean, that's my memory of it. Because like I had just read the Thrawn trilogy
Mm.
and then I discover this new thing. It like immediately made sense to me why I'd never heard of this. Because I mean, number one, like you said, John, it quote unquote didn't count. And number two, like if it were good, then people would have remembered it. Like I would have heard of it, right?
Yeah, no one told me to read it. Everyone, I think I remember hearing people say that it wasn't that good, but then again, like we're talking about the opinions of like 14-year-olds. So like, so what does that mean? I don't know. As a 39-year-old reading it, I didn't think it was the worst book I've ever read in my life, but
No, not at all.
it just definitely was like a vibe, and I think that like I wanted like cinematic Star Wars, and to read that book is very much like we were saying about before, like low budget, made for TV, like make believe, almost like fan fiction in a weird way. So
It's like it's a 200-page Ballantine paperback. It's not some prestige. It didn't even
yeah,
have a hardback, right? Like it's not. It
there's
doesn't
no
have that.
prestige. Yeah,
Like as opposed
absolutely.
to the two of you, I went and sought this thing out because the way I nerd out about stuff is to nerd out about the weird corners, like like another like Doctor Who again. Sorry slash you're welcome. But like the audio dramas, the books, all of that stuff doesn't count. I still enjoy it. Like some of my
Mhm.
favorite doctors were never on television, right? Like they're audio guys.
One of my favorite Star Wars expanded universe things, I forget what they called it, but there was a comic series where they basically did like non-canon, like what if stories. Uh
Infinities.
yes.
Oh
I
yeah.
loved
Like,
Infinities, man.
what
Yeah.
if
Yes.
Luke froze to death in Empire and Leia
Mhm.
had to pick up the mantle and stuff
Yeah.
like that? Yeah, yeah,
Sick.
yeah.
Like there is something I'm super intrigued by like in The Road's Not Taken, or like you were saying, Michael, the parallel universe, the forks in the road, like how this could have gone. And in that sense, like that's the enjoyment that I get out of quote unquote expanded universe material. Not this like transmedia storytelling where like it all counts, but some of it you kind of know in the back of your mind actually doesn't count. And like
Mhm.
I mean, it does all come back to what you said, Michael. I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, it comes back to people don't want to feel like they're wasting their time. So you have to kind of make sure that you make a point to say, like, no, 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 like
Yeah.
these count. These
If,
count.
like, say, like, if, for example, you were to make a series of random disconnected movies that all claim that they will one day bump into, say, for example, Spider-Man, and there was, like, no plan for that to actually happen, people would lose their fucking shit. You know what I mean? Like, the amount of time they've put into these, like, other movies, like, people would lose their fucking minds.
I feel like the inverse of that is Cloverfield, where like the day they release it's like, it's a Cloverfield movie, and people were like,
Mhm.
can you just like, we know it's not a
Can
Cloverfield
you
movie.
not? Yeah.
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 Well, more or less, it's just like I think Splinter of the Mind's Eye is a interesting experiment in canon, and
Mm.
what we expect out of the things that maybe they have the things that we love, but also like what has been established beforehand, you know? And I don't know, I feel like we could do a whole other podcast about like what we consider canon is and how we defined like I earlier I said like, oh well, for the longest time I was like Boba Fett is dead because the movie said so. Why? Why do I think that? Why am I okay with like other things and not that, you know? Or like I don't know. I just feel like there's a fine line to walk for something that's not the original source material to make it feel like it is that. And to find that, to hit that note is almost impossible. So why do some things succeed more than others?
Yeah, why don't I care about Goth Chewbacca? I just can't do it. Why don't I care at all about that guy? I just don't give a shit.
My thing is always like, if it's good, then continuity doesn't matter, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yet, I feel like there's a certain stripe of fan that I think places a higher importance upon continuity and
Mhm.
adhering to canon, for which, you know, violation of canon matters much more than the underlying quality
They
of
won't even
the
give the
film.
story a chance.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
is the is the brutal thing now is like
Yeah.
that frankly like disease has like gone that rampant.
You know, for example, I'm sorry, both The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi completely obliterated what the like continuity of Star Wars was.
Sure.
Like in Vader was not Luke's father until The Empire Strikes Back. Like, you go back and you look at the original Star Wars, like that is not what that character is. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not. And you go to Return of the Jedi, oh, Leia is Luke's sister. Well, you go back and watch The Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars, they would not have had all those very
Yep.
close romantic encounters if that was always the story. And the reason
Mhm.
why I'm saying this, not as an indictment of those two movies, far from it. It's saying that you are allowed to deviate from what is established if the idea is good. Because if it's good and it works, then who cares?
Yeah.
Yep.
Grant Morrison's new X-Men wasn't a problem until Grant Morrison left the book. Right? Like, and if you don't know that book, like issue 1 of Grant Morrison's new X-Men is like humankind has 5 years to live and then it's all mutants.
Hmm.
Fuck off. That's the book. And it's just like, wait, that doesn't, you can't do that. What are you doing? Like everybody else in the Marvel office is like their heads on fire, running around like, what's he doing? Like, or what are they doing? Rather now. But and then by the end of that book, like Magneto turns Manhattan into a concentration camp. Like it's just not a very compatible book with
With
continuity, right?
anything
Like
in Marvel, yeah.
it's just not like there was nobody cared because it was good. Like that's like it was, yeah, so it doesn't matter, right? It
Yeah,
like you're
the
saying.
Sometimes it's easier to be like, okay, this was a movie first, therefore, anything that comes out after that video game, book, comic doesn't really count unless they make another movie. But sometimes movies retcon their own. I mean, you're talking about Empire and Jedi, but I mean, like they literally retcon their own shit. Like, Halloween has like a million movies, and like, 40 something years later, they're like, oh, we're gonna make the actual sequel to Halloween. All the other ones didn't happen, or
Godzilla's like that. There are a
Godzilla.
dozen Godzilla
Uh,
movies that are sequels to only the first Godzilla, right?
The
Like,
Terminator movies are like that
mhm,
too, where it's like, only
Superman
we're going
Superman
back to
Returns.
yeah,
right?
Superman Returns, and even then, Superman Returns was like kind of like thrown away with the new DCU, whatever. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like, you see these things, and like, you watch like the Alien movies, and then you have Alien vs Predator, 2 movies, and it's like everyone kind of understood this isn't real. Like, I'm in the movie theater, I'm watching this movie, but this movie isn't happening even though I'm watching it. And then when you watch Prometheus and Alien Covenant, we all understood no matter what I think about this movie, good or bad, this is happening. This is real. And it's like, what is that? You know? Alien
Mhm.
vs Predator, not real. Prometheus and Covenant, real. Maybe it's because it's Ridley Scott and he made the first movie. I probably just answered my own
It
question.
is, yeah. It's author, but yeah.
Yeah, well, so that's actually something that I was going to say. Like the one argument that I do have some sympathy for, particularly when it comes to Star Wars, is the stuff George Lucas did. Is quote unquote canon, like that.
Because he
That
invented Star
G
Wars.
canon.
yeah, not just the idea that like, oh, he invented it, so therefore like this counts. There's also the idea that there's like a unifying cohesion to the concerns, the characterizations, like, where the story goes, it's all through the lens of this one man. So even if it does change and evolve, like it's still the animating concerns and the sensibilities are the same. So you can like see what he was doing. There's a YouTuber, Star Wars YouTuber, Star Wars Theory, that is like I think the embodiment of that. Like he's all in on George Lucas Star Wars. And the interesting thing about him is that the prequels were his Star Wars
Mm.
movies that he
That
grew up
makes
with.
perfect sense that he's like a pure Lucas guy, because Lucas is
Exactly.
so auteurish
Exactly.
and autorial, whatever. into
And
those
we grew up with
prequels.
different people directing different Star Wars movies, so
Right.
it's yeah.
Right.
So like we like variety.
So for the Star Wars Theory guy, the Disney trilogy was the first time he had trouble with new Star Wars movies. We already arguably had that experience where we got something that we were not expecting.
You've been there, done that, baby.
Yeah, yeah, so-
Jango
Yeah.
Fett exists. Like, I don't know what to tell
yeah.
you.
It's not our first rodeo, you know. It's like
Yeah, so but
They're like
midichlorians are a thing.
rolls, and then
Deal
just
with
pew, pew,
it.
pew, pew, pew.
Right.
It's like, yeah.
Jar
So,
Jar
but, like-
Binks exists. Deal with it, you know.
There you go. Yeah, that's yeah. Begun this Clone War has. I've done it all, man. You can't kill me. I'm already dead.
Closing thoughts on Splinter of the Mind's Eye, or an answer to the question, what is the legacy of Splinter of the Mind's Eye?
I think Splinter of the Mind's Eye is an interesting experiment as to like a contingency plan. You know, it's just like look where Star Wars could have been. It's like a sneak peek into a branch into another universe. Like, what if Star Wars wasn't successful? You would have had Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and I think for academic reasons, I find it a very interesting story novel. But outside of that, like I could take it or leave it. You know, it's just like it just exists in my mind. You know, but as like something to read if you're into Star Wars, I wouldn't recommend it to people who have no affiliation to Star Wars whatsoever. Like I would only recommend it to hardcore people that just want to get this different perspective. And it's for that by itself is just very interesting on its own, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think in a modern context, I love it more than ever because it is the ultimate preconceived notion buster, right? Like
Yeah.
if you know someone who is like obsessed with the idea that there was always some sacred plan to make like 9 exact perfect saga Star Wars things, you can hand them 200 pages of proof that they are out of their fucking gourd. Like it's like it's the book that turns me into Alex Jones about Star Wars. Like, we got the documents. Like, it's the proof that there was no plan. There's no plan. There's no great fucking magical stuff. Like, it's just some guys making up shit. Like, that's it. We got it. It's right here. Like, I have it. I've got, like, it's right here. Like, it's just, yeah. Like, so it just, to me, its relevance in a modern context, like you were saying, John, I would never hand this to somebody who's only like seen 1 or 2 Star Wars and doesn't
Yeah.
care. Its only modern relevance is to like deep fans who need to just like have a Tide Pod thrown into their brain. Like it's the perfect, it's just like whatever weird canon hang up you've got, this book is the Alka-Seltzer that will burp it out of you. Like it's gone. I love it. I've read it twice now, and both times I read it, I'm just like, oh man, this rules. Like it's so terrible and grungy and different from the Star Wars we got, but like it leads us down a tangent to what if Ridley Scott directed Star Wars, so it can't be that
Yeah.
bad. Like, it's got to be pretty great, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be pretty rad, man. And yeah, it exists. The thing I love, it exists before so much of what you think is Star Wars existed. There are no back to tanks. There's no like Yoda or ancient
Mhm.
Jedi masters or like any of that. Like it exists in a world where there was one Star Wars and it was the movie Star Wars. No episode numbers, none of that stuff. Like it's this amazing artifact. And I just hope they never let it go out of print or let it fade into not like just I'm saving my copy like in a safe or something in the safe deposit box. Like this existed, this happened. Like it's cool. It just is this weird thing. It's proof we've got the document. I don't know.
I wanna meet the person who considers Star Wars canon only from, Splinter of the Mind's Eye. Like, so A New Hope and Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and that's it. Like,
Hell yeah.
Alan Dean Foster.
I mean, kinda, a little bit. Like,
The
I mean,
more I read it, the more I come around. It's like, yeah, not really.
Michael, you said, I think you summed it up. It's a fascinating window into a parallel universe. Maybe the Fringe universe, where I don't know if anyone gets that reference. Remember the show
The title
Fringe?
sequences are dope. Yeah, I know. I know.
Michael, if anyone has heard any of our Doctor Who detours and is like, "Oh, I want some more of that," where can people find Game of Rassilon or anything else you wanna plug?
Please subscribe to the Game of Rassilon and whatever podcast you like. If you're a Doctor Who fan, it's New Adventures with the New Doctor, Deep Future. Don't worry about canon, like we were just talking about. We're just having fun with the Doctor where all the monsters exist. It's fine. Um, we're heading into, I don't know when this comes out, but June 1st of this year, we're starting season 4 with a new Doctor, a new game, Missy, a new edition of the system. The system has moved on to second edition, so we're doing a regenerated game. So it's very fun. We've recorded a bunch of episodes. We've recorded about half the season already. And it's a really different show. It's very fun. It's more episodic, it's faster. I'm talking a lot about my show on your show. I'm sorry.
I
So
asked
yeah,
for it.
please find us at Rassilon on the various socials media. And if you want even more, we have behind the screen, behind the scenes, behind the everything content on Patreon, as well as bonus adventures, including the forthcoming Total Chaos, which is extremely fun. We Dan, who is going to be our doctor, GM's Farflung. I play a malevolent sphere called Kill Sphere. They're my favorite character I've ever played.
It's amazing.
I get to do a very extended USB joke in one of the episodes. It's exquisite. But the thing about our Patreon is also you just buy time. So eventually those bonus adventures will be on the main feed. You're just going to have to wait till December instead of getting
Oh,
them in May.
cool.
So
Very cool.
for those who can't afford it, that's fine. For those who can't afford $5 a month and would like a great big pile of stuff, please join us at Patreon at Rassilon Pod. There's a lot more of me talking. I hope that's not a detriment. But yeah, no, thank you again for having me on here. I love Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and I love talking, especially Apocrypha, especially weird corners of nerd stuff. So
That's my jam. That's my
this
jam as well.
is like exactly chef's kiss. This is where I want to be. So thank you both again.
No, well, I'm so glad that you were able to join us for this. And I want to thank both of you, John and Michael, for having this very nerdy but very wonderful in so many ways discussion about Star Wars Splinter of the Mind's Eye. If you liked what you heard, you can find us at trashcompod.com, and please rate and review us on the podcast platform of your choice. You can find Trash Compod across all social media, and we will see you on the next one.